Whenever I see a homeless person, I experience really strong feelings of empathy and compassion. And I ask myself, what has happened in his or her life that has led him or her to a life on the streets? Where is his or her family? What about his or her friends? And for answers, I simply could look into my own life, into my past, and maybe even into my present. Homeless people are often the victim of crimes, the victims of abuse. They suffer from hunger. They suffer from exposure to the elements. And many are quite vulnerable to disease, have little access to health care, and are generally ignored when they seek help. There's the opinion of some who say, oh, they're just homeless by choice. You see, they're nothing but lazy people. They don't have any morals. They're rather stupid. But most of them are victims of abuse in the form of neglect and abandonment, maybe from their parents, maybe from their caregivers, or prolonged sexual abuse or isolated incidents of extreme trauma. Some of them are simply victims of life's tragedies, hurricanes or fires or other catastrophes that they simply could not recover from. And there's also that snowball effect. Once a person is on the streets, it's difficult for them to become employed. Why? Because who wants to employ someone who doesn't have an address? Many of them don't have the resources to do their own laundry. Who wants to hire someone that's filthy? And the condition of homelessness creates and adds to low self-esteem, which connotes into not being able to effectively communicate with others. Good evening, this is Neighbortalk, and I'm your City Councilwoman Janis Fullilove, representing District 8, Position 2. And I'd like to say Happy New Year to you. This is the first time I've seen you since December, and hope that all is well. But all is not well for a segment of our population here in this city of good abode. And we're going to deal with and talk tonight about homelessness, and I have three very esteemed guests. From my left to your right, I'd like to welcome Brad Watkins, who's with the Peace and Justice Center here in the city. Also, Director Robert Lipscomb, who wears so many hats, so Housing and Community Development, Memphis Housing Authority, and certainly our very illustrious, the new mayor of the city of Memphis, Mr. AC Wharton. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, we talk about this issue of homelessness, and I understand from the National Coalition of Homelessness that certainly the economic downturn that we're in, that over the next 2 years, some 1.5 million people are expected to live on the streets. And Brian, I'm going to start with you, because at the Peace and Justice Center, you certainly work very closely with the city's homeless. What is it that you found here in Memphis that perhaps is the root cause of what's happening?
Well, there's the thing about homelessness is, and a lot of times we talk about homelessness as if homelessness is a problem, crime is a problem, this is a problem, that's a problem. And really what it is, homelessness is kind of where the rubber hits the road with all of society's failings, from domestic violence to lack of affordable housing, to education, to our criminal justice system. All these things, mental illness, drug abuse, all these things kind of hit the road with homelessness. So I would say there are a lot of root causes, but I think at the core is the fact that we have generational cycles of poverty here in Memphis. Real briefly, during your intro, you talked about very eloquently about, you know, where the families and friends and people to reach out. Well, the situation we have here is it's like a pyramid. And on the bottom level of that pyramid, you've got people who we all think of as homeless, people living on the streets and vacants. Well, above them, you've got a level of people who are staying in hotels, sleeping in cars. And above them, you have a larger group of people who are staying on their brother's couch or with their parents or with friends, people who are just one argument or one bad situation away from being on the street. Now, right above them, you've got folks who are deciding what bill they're going to pay this week. And they pay all the late charges and all the reactivation fees. And they're the ones who are just one paycheck away from being homeless. So when we look at where are their families, odds are, a lot of cases, their families are doing all they can to hold on themselves. And with the economic crisis, a lot of people have been knocked down a peg. So when we talk about homelessness, we're talking about not just compassion for the less fortunate, but our own self-interest as a city and as a community.
Mayor Wharton, I certainly have to commend you and certainly Memphis Light, Gas and Water Division President Jerry Collins on the decision that you made to cut on the utilities of individuals. And we saw one 79-year-old man who certainly, I guess you could say he was homeless. He was sleeping in his car. But you guys made the decision, we're going to cut these utilities on and do something to try to help individuals. And I know that this issue of homelessness is close and dear to your heart. Because you've talked, I think, at some point in time about maybe the creation of a free shelter.
Right. We need that. It always amazes me, and how we can bring, in terms of Katrina, we brought in people from other cities, and just overnight we brought in all the facilities. We've got to do better by those who are with us all the time. We mobilized when Hurricane Gustav occurred and took good care of people. They were only here temporarily, most of them. So if we can do it almost spur of the moment, that same resolve ought to be with those who are here. And many of the homeless, as Mr. Watkins just pointed out, they've been productive members of society. I practiced law for many, many years, and you'd be surprised at the reverses that can suddenly occur in your life. I can never drive by a homeless person without reflecting on certain points in my life or a member of my family who could be standing on that same corner, on that same cardboard. We're going to do something about it. When you speak with Director Lipscomb here, you'll get some of the particular plans that we have. You know, there was used to be an old song, you and I can remember this, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Telling my age.
But the point I make is that how many ways can you become homeless? It's just almost innumerable. And this is why we've got to come up with a multifaceted approach, because it's not going to be a cookie cutter. If we do this, we'll catch them all. Let me just make this point and then turn it over to somebody else. I am particularly concerned about the next wave of veterans. When they start returning from Afghanistan and Iraq, we're in wars in which our fighters and soldiers never come home and able to declare a clear victory, and therefore we don't really appreciate them the way we should. And the world that they saw when they left here, the families that they saw when they left here, won't be the same world, won't be the same families. We have yet another wave coming, and I just hope we'll get ready for that.
Thank you so much. This is Neighbor Talk. I'm Janis Fullilove. You're here talking with Mayor AC Wharton, Brad Watkins, and certainly our Director of Housing and Community Development. We'll be talk momentarily, but let me give you the phone numbers: 415-2756, 415-2756. If you have a question or comment that you'd like to make, please feel free to call and ask. Robert, of course, I know how passionate you are. I sit there in the council chambers and the council committee rooms, and I hear how you want housing and what the things that has occurred under your leadership. I mean, wonderful things. And there's something specifically that you want to do as a city for our homeless.
I think we want to put together a plan. I think the mayor's advocating, and I think when we met with, had a good meeting last week with Brad and some other folks, I think we want to develop a plan that ends homelessness. I know it's going to be difficult to do that, but I think you have to develop a plan and do some reconnaissance and some research. And what we're going to do is look at the best practices out there and look at the future and say, given the best practices we're going to study, given the future projections for this area, how can the city of Memphis best serve this clientele? And you got to figure out also how you're going to pay for it. That's going to be the issue. And
certainly.
I think, and the mayor wants to do a free shelter, and I think a lot of cities have done that. and you got to do some research on how, if you do the free shelter, how do you bring them in and how you get them out.
Exactly, yeah.
And how you pay for it. And so we're looking at those things because you don't want to set something up for free. You want to make sure that whatever you do, it can be sustained. So I think based on the committee that we have put together and our agreement to look at best practices, our agreement to look at funding sources, I think we're going to come up with a really wonderful plan that includes everybody and I have a chance to get everybody involved. And the first step in that plan was we did it last week, I think, with the count. And that count was really successful. I think it was a different kind of count and a different approach, but it was done in the daytime. We had 70 volunteers. I think the mayor asked city workers to volunteer, and a lot of them did.
I was one of those volunteers, yes.
So it's a different approach. I think it was much more strategic and had more volunteers. I think the approach of counting was different. It was an interview process as opposed to just counting people, and it was non-threatening. Yeah, because in the past the police were involved, and so it was a very threatening thing. So people didn't feel like they could open up and tell the truth. And I think what we found was a validation of what we thought we knew, and that was most of the homeless have been, homeless for, extended period of time. A lot of them had been up to 5 years homeless. So at least 1/3 were up to 5 years, and most were on the periphery, and they'd had some substance abuse problem or some event that was a negative in their lives. So I think what we got to do is figure out get some information, do some reconnaissance, and then figure out a plan that we can sustain.
Mayor AC Wharton, Brad Watkins, also Director Robert Lipscomb, 415-2756. We go to the phone lines. Heather caller, and welcome into Neighbortalk.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, thanks. I actually work at Memphis Housing Authority, and I noticed that we refer a lot of different families to homeless shelters and outreach centers that are, often helpful, but that they usually divide by gender and age. And a lot of times I refer families, to a lot of these different places, but I noticed that they usually divide, the help by the gender and the age, as far as a woman's shelter, and, this is for women and children, and the men are different. But I was just wondering if there are any homeless shelters and outreach centers that accept families without having to divide them.
All right, thank you so much. I think Director Lipscomb will address that.
That is a major problem, I think, and not only do you have a problem, but you have this divisiveness of, you have women over here and women and children over here, and you have men over here. So that's one of the needs that we know that is a critical need is a shelter for not only women and children, but for families. Because that's and it's like adding insult to injury. I'm homeless, and now I got to separate. Right. And so I think that's what the mayor wants us to look at real closely is this shelter for women and children and families.
And that underscores a point, and you said it in your intro so eloquently. The pitch of homeless is not to use the street language or whine or just down and out chose this. One of the first things we did in county government is worked with the Salvation Army to set up a program called Bright Spaces in those homeless shelters where there were children. Have a stop to think about it. There are homeless children.
Yes.
Homeless children. Can't blame them on it. We can't say, well, they never should have started smoking dope, or they never should have gotten in trouble or whatever. I mean, they are. And we ever stop to think that homeless shelters are not designed for children, so we went in and just set up one corner in each shelter, called it Bright Spaces with books and toys. I get into that detail because the family situation is really critical. We've got, it does more to divide family. We're trying to help, but then again, you can understand why, because of liability things, you have to get into that, but there ought to be a way to come up with housing where we can keep families together.
And we certainly hope we can do that. We're going back to the phone lines. Hi, caller, you have a question or a comment for either of my guests.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you all for putting on such a wonderful program today. In fact, I've been trying to catch Mayor Wharton on the street because I had some ideas. I looked over on it's over by the Kings and Daughters old
off Matthew
home.
Yes.
And I see buildings like this in
Memphis all the time, and I think that they could be put well to good use because there's kind of like a hospital setting. You have separate rooms, you have wards, and I think buildings like that could be used. Also, I think that we could get some food from some of the cafeteria programs. They throw out such tremendous amounts of food from the cafeterias every day. I think some of that food could be used to help feed the homeless. And but most of all, even when they tore down that big building on Lamar Street, it was an old hospital. That would have been a wonderful place to set up for the homeless. You had separate rooms. Only thing you would need to do is hire security guards, but you could bring all your social people there. And I think it should be a program, say, to keep people for 9 months. In the meanwhile, you get them educated, you get them rehabilitated, to provide them with whatever services they need, because you just don't want to put, say, you got a 9-month stay limit and then you're back on the street without some kind of education where people assess your needs to, kind of like prison, where you'll have skills to be put back out on the street and people can help you find the housing, the jobs, and all that. But anyway, I was just looking at, I really think that you should look at some of these nursing homes and hospitals that are out of business where you could house a number of people. And for families, you could do what you did during Katrina. Use some of the food to house whole families that are homeless. Thank you.
And thank you so very much. 415-2756. And that caller, Mayor, I don't want to say naive, because sometimes I've been naive as well in thinking, well, the city can do more. The city can have a one-stop shop. We can have the homeless housed here, and we can offer them mental health services. We can offer them job counseling. We can help them get their Social Security or their SSI started. But it's not as simple and cut and dried, even with the Kings and Daughters facility, which is empty, which I thought, just as the caller did, that would be an excellent facility for the city to come in. But it's not that simple.
Well, as a matter of fact, somebody just called me about and we had looked up the address. It's 1467 McLemore.
Right.
And they owe about $867,000 of back taxes on it. So we had looked at that as a possible site for our families, because of the one-stop shop, and it's, you got a lot of rooms, treatment rooms, so it'd be great, like an SRO, single room occupancy.
Right.
But the issue is it may be from an operating cost standpoint. You got to really look at that.
The building won't be a problem. This is why you have not heard me go out and say we're going to build.
Right.
That is, I would say that is not, we'll find the infrastructure. The key thing, this is why we're calling it to end homelessness. That's going to be more difficult than finding a place to house homelessness. We can house it tomorrow. I can get units from MHA, school buildings, but we only exacerbate the problem if we don't come up with tried and tested methods to end it, to get them out of that, because that becomes a cycle. And so it's just like someone mentioned prisoner reentry a minute ago, the caller did. How do we end that? And that's going to be our key challenge, not to find a place. We could solve it by the end of the week if we're just finding a building somewhere.
Certainly. Brad, you wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, we certainly have if anything, if it was an answer of vacant housing, I mean, sadly, we have plenty of that. I think the issue here, and to echo what both of them said, is we've got to find a housing first model, which is something that the city has been very much moving towards. And that is, once you deal with the issue of housing, not shelter, but housing, then the other factors and barriers become much easier to mitigate.
Right.
And a great example of that, a pretty controversial one, was in Seattle. They built the 1811 East Lake Center. And this was a controversial program in Seattle where they went out and they said, we're going to find 75 top public intoxication people who are going constantly in and out of the jail system, folks out in the street. We're going to provide this apartment complex for them to move into. We're going to offer 24/7 care, medication, treatment facilities. And what they found out was, but they still allowed them to drink. Now that, you could imagine,
Right.
was pretty controversial. Well, you know what they found? They found after a year, it saved the city $4 million in 1 year. From the emergency room cost, from the criminal justice cost, the law enforcement hours cost, and it dropped public intoxication by 48%. Now, HUD and the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness and all the naysayers are saying, you know, this program works. So, not necessarily that may be a perfect fit here, but the core of the idea is we have to stop looking at the issue of homelessness in the same way we talk about charity. And what we have to do is look at the impact of having people live on the streets. You know, we're talking about cost, and that's a very prudent thing to do with anything that the government does, because there's no money out there. But if you look at the cost of a house fire for people in vacants, it runs us about $30,000. A 911 call runs us from about $1,000 to $5,000. Some of these people have 10 calls a month. If you look at the cost of the code enforcement, criminal justice, $87 to $90 a day at 201. We're already paying for having a problem of homelessness. So these policies that address homelessness, in the end, will save the city untold millions of dollars and can improve the quality of life for everyone. It's not about charity. It's about what's best for the city.
And we're going to talk more about that, 415-2756, because I think Director Lipscomb said that one of the problems would be if you had a free shelter, how do you get them in? How do you get them out? We're going to the phone lines. Hi, caller. Welcome into Neighbortalk. Hi there, caller. Well, I guess we've lost.
Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, thank you for making the
I'm
call.
calling for
And
my mayor.
Don't listen to you because you're going to get
My mayor.
feedback. All right.
All right, I'm here.
He's still sitting right here. What's your question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we hear.
Let me
I was calling about housing,
Okay.
What about housing?
and when it comes to seniors,
All right. What about,
especially with your background with the law,
Ma'am, let me say this.
I'm sorry with the delay.
Yeah, please just continue to talk because you're going to hear a delay. So just what your concern is, you want to ask the mayor a
Okay,
question about housing for the elderly.
okay. Yes, we do have Mr. Lipscomb.
Well, not only is he my mayor, he is also the most prominent person sitting in the room that understands the law and that can educate the public on legislation. And with everybody speaking about so many things about what's fair and unfair, we have our elderly and our seniors having to live next to folks that have problems, which is not fair to our seniors.
I know where the call is
I'm not saying
going.
that we should not house
I
folks with
understand.
problems. I'm
Sure.
saying that our seniors should not have to be exposed.
I know exactly where you're going. Let me answer that because
People that have,
we're running long on it. I've got your answer
All
right
right,
here.
thank you so very much, caller.
I've dealt with this question before. Mr. Lipscomb and I have discussed it many times. Matter of fact, I used to represent the Housing Authority, so I'm familiar with it. The various disability laws do not allow the Housing Authority to exclude, say, drug addiction is an illness. So you're going to have, and this is a big problem, I'm just going to hit it head on, and this is not speaking against those who are disabled by way of drug addiction. But what the caller is saying is that there's a certain incompatibility. If you have someone who is 28 years old, who is addicted, and has friends who come and go all night, it's hard, they defeat the locks on the doors because they're coming and going. all times of night, it makes it rough on MHA. I know how difficult it is, and many people say, why didn't MHA get them? They got a drug addict living next door to my grandma, and all those people come. That's the law. It's going to have to be changed. They are protected without regard to age. If you are disabled, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong.
As a matter of fact, we had a meeting today about that. What we're trying to do is decide if we can designate our high-rises for senior only. And so we're going to check with the Fair Housing Centers to see, because it is a problem, because right now we got what we call, people with dually diagnosed people who, and the real problem is we don't have enough capacity, because when they closed the, Western State, and they closed the Poplar and Dunlap, you got to house people, because otherwise you're down the street again. So if we want the housing of last resort, you have a lot of people on the street. So one of the things we're looking at is trying to figure out what's fair and what's morally right too, because those people got to go somewhere.
Exactly.
And so we're trying to figure out, can we put the seniors in one place and say designate certain high rises senior only, and then have a place, for people who are non-seniors, so they can get treatment, because you don't want to have them all in one place, because they're stigmatized too.
Certainly.
And so
And there's laws against that.
there's laws against that too. So
Yes.
it is a tough.
So it's not as cut and dried as some people would think perhaps it is.
It's a very complicated issue.
Very
It's
complicated.
one of the most difficult issues I've ever had to deal with. As I say, I once represented MHA, and that was a tremendous, and I was also a defense lawyer, and I would see so many instances in which crimes were committed on the premises by those who would come and visit the younger folks in there, grab a purse.
Right.
Still, it's just we've got to straighten that out.
And this is something that you are looking at.
As a matter of fact, looking at it right now, as a matter of fact, the other problem is security. I mean, with MHA, we used to have 24-hour security at all of our high rises, because the population is vulnerable, and the seniors sitting there, and they're just very vulnerable. So you see a lot of crime in there, and so when you introduce this other element, not only have a vulnerable population, you are introducing another element into that vulnerable population. So we have to provide 24-hour security at our high rises. Given the fact that HUD has cut that out, now we can't provide 24-hour security. So that's another issue, is the lack of security. So we're looking at that, and we're close to thinking about violating the law. I'm just totally being honest.
Certainly.
You almost have to find a balance between adhering to the law and making sure you are decent with people, because you don't want to stigmatize those folks either and put them into this hospital-like environment.
Certainly you don't.
So you got to figure out the balance that's fair and it adheres to the law, at the same time makes for a pleasant environment. So it's a tough situation.
I'm City Councilwoman Janis Fullilove. This is Neighbor Talk. My guest, the Honorable AC Wharton, Mayor of the City of Memphis, Director Robert Lipscomb, who wears so many hats, and I want to call him the guy with the Midas touch, because when it comes to housing and he touches it, it turns to gold. Brad Watkins with the Peace and Justice Center, and of course, I'm representing District 8 Position 2. Our conversation this evening is dealing with homelessness, and for those of you that are first-time viewers and first-time callers, certainly want to welcome you in, but you will hear a delay. So when I go to the phone lines, as I'm about to do right now, just continue talking, don't listen to yourself or you get confused. 415-2756, hi caller, welcome into Neighbor Talk.
I would like to say to the representatives there this evening, we have been talking about homeless for years. And you got to do more than talk. You got to walk the walk that you talk about. And there are enough resources here in the city of Memphis, with the mayor there, Mr. Lipscomb, and the other gentleman there. If people of those people caliber get together, they can do something about the homeless. We have got what we call the Tomb of Doom downtown. Somebody's got the key to that facility, okay? So why can't we open that up for the homeless? Not just cold weather, not just snow, rain, and sleet. The homeless need somewhere to go. I have been to Nashville and other cities, and people there that are homeless, they leave other cities to go to Nashville because they get treated with dignity and pride. A lot of times, it's not a fault of theirs, not alcohol or drugs or trouble. A lot of people, a check or maybe two checks away from being homeless.
Certainly.
And I've seen people, they sit up there and they talk about it, they get on shows like this, and after the show is off, they pass the homeless like they're trash. And this is what's happening in Memphis. There are enough people here that we can do something about the homeless. One way we can probably save some revenue, save some resources is stop giving all these big raises to all the big shot people all the time, and you can help the homeless. And we've got so much crookness and politicians and things, that money that go under the table could be good for the homeless. So let's stop just talking about it and having all these pretty shows and having all these pretty phones in and do something about the homeless. Because a lot of people that's in you all Shake City that today, you know, you don't know what kind of life those people live. They are human beings. God made them just like he made you. Let's seriously do something about the homeless and stop talking about it.
Let me say something. Okay, thank you, sir. Let me say something. This is not a pretty show. I wanted to deal with this issue because I knew, and I know how people are hurting out there, all right? I just didn't hear about it, but I've been out there with them. I've spoken with them. I've talked with them. You know, I've seen people in other cities, in Washington, D.C., in San Antonio, Texas, in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've seen them living on the streets right here in the city of Memphis, and it pains me. And I know as an elected official, and I know Mayor Wharton, Robert, Brett, we want to do something about it, but it's not a cookie-cutter kind of situation that we can just say, okay, we're going to open up the old Sears building here in Crosstown, and we're just going to fill it up with people. It's not that simple.
Well, one thing, and I think that underscores, you know, the call is very passionate, is that there is a lot of energy and a lot of passion in the community right now, and I think that's great, because I think that once these positive things come out of the plan, that we're going to need that support. We're going to need people out there to make those calls to your elected officials and get these things moving forward. As far as the pyramid, the issue there is that sadly, the amount of structural improvements that would need to be done to convert that facility into something else, regardless of what it becomes, is astronomically high.
Yeah, because you just don't want to go throw people somewhere and say, oh, you're just getting here, let's put some cots here.
However, I think the answer, and we're going to talk about this a little later, is affordable housing and getting people into housing. And I think shelters are good, but affordable permanent housing and getting people a path out of homelessness permanently is something that can be done. We're going to talk about this a little later. We're doing a lot of research, so I want to talk to Director Lipscomb.
Thanks. I want to go to the mayor on that.
And lest people lose faith, let me just give one little kernel here of what has been done. There's a program Mr. Watkins and I was discussing a minute ago, Project Jericho, which works with the mentally ill who are constantly processed through the jail, in and out, into the streets, hanging out in front of the drugstore, getting arrested, back in the jail. It is a modeling program to the caller, not a program in Berkeley, not in Boston, not in the Back Bay, but in Memphis, Tennessee, called Project Jericho, started right here, that gets people out of jail, and as opposed to having them get out of jail and crawl in a box or under a bridge, they go into a home where there is a guardian for them. So things are being done. They're compassionate and effective things. Are we ready to declare victory?
No.
Absolutely not.
No.
But we just don't want to give the public the impression that
nothing is being done.
What do you call university places? What do you call up there? All the Lamar and all these are
but Mayor, you also have Judge Dwyer in the drug court, because many of those individuals who come out of drug court, many of them have no place to go, and he puts them in facilities so they can get rehabilitated, and other agencies come in and work with them and get them off the street, and they get housing, and they get opportunities for jobs and training and things like that. So I can understand. I heard the passion in the last caller's voice, but, you know, I don't want him or any of our other viewers to think that, you know, all of this under the table money, I don't know who they're talking about, what politician you talk about getting all this money under the table. It's not me, certainly, but there are individuals like myself that are sitting here at this table that are genuinely concerned. I got up at 4:15 last week, was it the other morning, and I went out there with counting the homeless, but I talked to them, I interacted with those individuals, and I couldn't do anything but cry because it broke my heart to see men and women and people in wheelchairs, and then what do you do all day? And then they don't have money to pay $7 to sleep in a mission at night, so what do? They sleep in alleyways or breezeways, or they sleep wherever they can find it under viaducts, and that has to hurt anybody that has a heart.
And one thing that piggybacks on what both of you talked about with the Jericho Initiative, which is a national model, as is the drug court. One of the only 10% of drug courts in this country are model courts, which our drug court is under Judge Dwyer and Mr. Bush's leadership over at Jericho. One thing is that last year in the county, we worked with the sheriff to advocate for $2.3 million in additional funding for those two programs in pretrial diversion. That's going to free up 200 beds at 201 Poplar for people who don't belong there. But it's also going to save Shelby County $4.1 million. Now, the key here is doing the right thing is also the fiscally responsible thing.
Right.
But to the caller, I say, I'm glad you're angry, because I want you to stay angry, because right now, drug court is going to be in the fight of its life for its program right now, and it needs everybody in this community to let their elected officials know that programs like Jericho and the drug court are a priority, and they need to be funded.
Thank you so much. 415-2756, welcome into Neighbor Talk. Hello, caller.
Hey, how you doing?
Fine, how are you?
All right. My question is that why are they tearing down so many buildings that they can use as shelters for the homeless people?
All right, thank you so very much. Who would like to answer that?
Well, I think the buildings that they're tearing down are part of community enhancement, and they are either structurally unsound or in some kind of state of disrepair. I think they have to be condemned, first of all, and so if they're condemned, then they are structurally unsound and they have to be torn down. So I think that's one reason right there.
You know,
they can be salvaged. We'd love to salvage them.
I've had individuals that would come to me and say, you have that Sears building sitting there, and Robert is smiling, so is the mayor, and why can't you turn that into a shelter? What would you say to them, Robert?
First of all, I'd say the Sears building is owned by the private sector. Secondly, it wasn't developed because of the sheer cost of redeveloping it. Thirdly, it has a lot of asbestos and environmental problems. Capitalism works some of the time. Some of the time it works, and so if there was a profit incentive, we would do it.
The stairs are wooden in there and all rotted out.
Yeah, exactly.
And Robert is an expert on this, but one thing we don't want to do, and I came here as a legal services lawyer, and we fought to decentralize. In other words, don't just say, like we used to be, a leper's village are, where you take all of them
And place
and put them
Yes.
over there.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to be cabined off like that. So this idea, we have a big building, let's use it as a leper's colony and put all of them. Listen, they found a place for the folks when Katrina hit New Orleans.
Oh, yeah, I know.
They
And
put
we
them
saw
in
what happened to
Superdome.
them.
That was
Yes.
a big building. So this idea of we've got a big building, all we need to do is unlock it and herd them in. It simply doesn't. That makes an even worse problem. Robert, as an expert in housing, will tell you that the idea of building a bigger housing development, that day left, and we don't want to come back and repeat the errors of the past when it comes to those who are homeless.
And also, as I said earlier, it's important people understand that there are federal laws against concentrating poverty. So other cities have gotten into trouble before where if their housing plan wasn't was accused of re-ghettotizing people, that they were sued and potentially lost housing funding.
Right.
I'm all for utilizing some of our unused buildings. I think it's good for the city, but it's something that with respect, has to be handled very carefully, and sometimes some of these buildings are in such states of disrepair that for the money you put into fixing it, you could build a new one.
Yes, 415-2756, 415-2756. We're going to go to the phone lines, but when we come back, I want one of you to think, why is it, or are you thinking about trying to get the business community involved in putting forth some of their dollars to help with the homeless? But first, we're going to the phone lines. Hi, caller. Welcome into Neighbor Talk.
Hey, how you doing today, Ms. Love?
Hi there.
My name is James, and I'm calling just to comment on the homelessness. The reason that a lot of people are homeless, because they got, felons back in the day, they can't get a job. It ain't that they don't work, it's just people just don't hire them. I take my hat off to you, Mr. Wharton, man, and you the best man for the job. I mean, it's just a question that I always want to ask. It ain't that the homelessness can't, they choose to be homeless. It's just they can't get a job so they can, just get out the streets. There's nobody, when you check the box on the application, when they say, have you been convicted of a felony, sometimes people mark no, knowing that they're going to do a criminal background. I don't know how far it go back. If the law say that you can't go back 7 years, they still go back and don't want to hire people. They end up homeless anyway.
Yeah.
They can't help it because nobody wants to get them a job. I actually hire people to come and work, just cutting grass and stuff. When I see them homeless, just under the bridge and all that kind of stuff, we actually stop and try to get them to, look, let me give you $10, $20, come cut my yard. They'll willingly come and do it, only if somebody just gives them an opportunity to make some money.
Thank you so very much, caller. Mr. Mayor.
Quickly, one of the last things I did before leaving the county is to begin a transition center out east. You know that there are people backed up in the state prison system, and you know why they're not out? Because they can't tell the warden where they're going to go when they leave.
Of course.
If I've been incarcerated for committing a crime against my family, assault or whatever, and I've done my time, you think I can miss and I'm going right back home? So there are people backed up. Again, the caller just underscores, and it goes back to what Mr. Watkins said at the top of the program. This challenge is so multifaceted.
Yes,
there is no just, here's the answer. A building, a loan for someone who has a criminal record and is not going to be able to get a job if you have some arrangement where you have to pay a little bit of your upkeep.
Certainly.
That's not going to solve that. So, and this is why we're taking the approach of how do we end it? Now, some may say, you guys are dreaming, but I've always said, shoot for the moon, you might land among the stars.
There's no vision, the people perish.
We've got to get there. And
Yes.
if we truly want to end it, we'll start working on those underlying conditions that Brad mentioned when we first started, whether it's a prison record, whether it's mental illness, just whatever it is.
And I think the caller is 100% on target. There is a wealth of people here in the city of Memphis who are trapped in poverty because they cannot find work, or they get a job, they work it for a while, and when times get tough, the employer can always go back and say, oh, I didn't know.
You had a felony.
And I've worked with guys who've been working solidly for a long time, who when the minute the economy went bad, boss called them in and said, oh yeah, you're a felon, we got to let you go. And that's a tremendous barrier, because in the state of Tennessee, once you're a felon, you're a felon for life.
That's why when I came back from San Antonio at the National League of Cities back in November, and some of the workshops that I attended, I saw where the city of Boston, not only Boston, but even some cities in Texas, they have what they call block the box. And I'm meeting with Judge Dwyer next week, also meeting with the head of the Chamber of Commerce to talk with them about, let's get some local businesses together to block the box, to at least give individuals who perhaps maybe they do have a felony, but give them an opportunity to walk in there and see if they're qualified to do the job. Because, how can you prevent, you're talking about eradicating homelessness, well, you've got to start somewhere. And you talk about the prison system being backed up and them not being able to go anywhere, then there's felonies follow them throughout their lives. They can't get a job. So what do? They end up back on the street, or they end up back within that prison system. So that's something. And I want our callers to know that, your elected officials, this one especially, I know about me, Mayor Wharton, we're doing the best that we can, going above. No such thing as going above and beyond, because there's such a need here in this community. But there are people who you elect that are in fact working and not taking anything under the table. Hi, caller. Welcome to Neighbortalk.
Good evening.
Hi there.
My name is Patricia Lewis. I'm a native of Memphis, Tennessee, specifically South Memphis, Tennessee. And I would just like to make a comment in reference to eradicating the problem as it relates to the homelessness within the city here in Memphis. I strongly believe that all of the burden shouldn't be on the elected officials. We all, as residents here in the city, have to go back to the basics as far as establishing community support and more so with the youth and working together to eradicate the problem. For a prime example, when I was in college, we did this program that was entitled Box City, where the college students, all of us, actually slept on the street to actually experience how it was living, how living on the street was. And so that basically broadened our horizons, and basically it encouraged us more to help the city where I went to school in to eradicate the problem, or at least assist with the problem of homelessness. So I would just like to say to the people that are out in the city listening that it's not only for the elected officials to do the problem, that everyone in the city, more so the community leaders, have to get together to eradicate the problem. And starting from the basics.
Thank you so very much. 415-2756, 415-2756. We go back to the phone lines. Hi, caller. Welcome into Neighbor Talk.
Janis,
Yes.
I want to kind of piggyback off of what the caller just said, that it's not on the elected officials. It's not on just the mayor himself, because he's only one person. It takes all of us, all the citizens of Memphis to get it up and running again. We can't expect one guy to come in that's only been in office for a short period of time and to change everything within days or within weeks. I know I was reading something about the animal shelter, and they was pointing a finger at the mayor about the animals starving to death. Well, I feel as though instead of talking about it, we need to give up ourselves and do more about it ourselves and get involved in it as citizens.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, caller.
You're welcome.
Having been on the receiving end, and our society is plentiful. We can take care of pets and humans. But I would say this, I just wished I could see the compassion and outrage
That you saw for the animals, for human beings.
Let me tell you, it's a false dichotomy. We don't have to choose. We can do both, so I would never get into that. But I tell you, I would love to see the same outrage and passion when someone rides upon someone sleeping under a viaduct, particularly children. You see people, when you see folks with little children on the bus stop early in the morning, where in the world have they been? They've been on that bus stop all night. I don't get any calls on that. I don't get any emails on that. So I'd like to see that compassion and outrage spread. A lot of people get angry at Mr. Watkins because he's passionate. I mean, he's going to jump on your case.
A lot of people do.
I wish we had 10,000.
Like Brad.
Like Brad. We could do something about this. So the caller does raise a valid point.
415-2756, 415-2756. Yes, Brad.
And when the caller was making the reference to what they call the Box Town, I know that Box City, Miss Kitchen,
Katie Kitchen, yes,
who spearheaded the count and is doing, I think, a tremendous job with her consultations with the city on homeless issues. I know that when she was in Norfolk, they did a similar event like that to raise community awareness. And I know she'd be a good person to talk to about that.
Thank you so very much. And before we go to the phone lines, and we have a few minutes left here on Neighbor Talk, I just want to, when the caller was saying that shouldn't all of this fall on the shoulders of elected officials, a young man by the name of Kenneth Lee, about 21 years old, has a cable talk show. And last November and December, he spearheaded a fundraising campaign for homeless children to get them toys and gifts for Christmas. And I just want to take my hat off to you, Kenny, and hope that spirit passes on to your neighbor. And this is Neighbor Talk. Hi, caller. Welcome in.
This is Tammy Miller, and hello to all of you, and thank you for talking about this. I am a person that, through my church, I've had the opportunity to meet and work with and just minister to many of the homeless. And I'd like to say, and just have the churches really just request that our churches, our leaders in the church, our members of the church, get out. We have enough churches in Memphis that if everybody took 1 week, they may be homeless, but they wouldn't be hungry. If everybody would just every church would take one person for just a little while and bring them in and love them and try to find out what's really going on inside, I think that would be a start. My son, who is 21, made the comment to me, Mom, if everybody gave everything, then nobody would need anything.
That's so
And it's kind of like what the mayor said, if we reach for the moon, we just might get the stars. So everybody, I think, needs to reach for the moon when it comes to homelessness, and just don't pass these people by, because they are people with hearts, with issues, just as we all are, and could be homeless tomorrow. So I just say for everyone, particularly our churches, because if we're in church, hopefully we're on a different level spiritually, hopefully. And if we're not, we're in the right place to get there. But if we reach back with God's Spirit and what God has did for us, given us the love and provides our needs, I think that is the best start, because if you get them there, then God will be able to deal with some of those things, and they'll see the love through you, and they'll get to know God on a different level. Not saying that they don't, but they need some love.
Oh, yeah.
They need love.
Thank you
I don't
so
really
much.
have a question, because I think you're doing a great job even with talking about it. And I just say keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. 415-2756. 415-2756. When a caller calls in like that, I mean, it just really warms my heart, because we do have many churches and many neighborhood groups and community groups that are doing what they can, and then we have so many other people who want to look at the homeless individuals as if they're invisible, don't want to be bothered with that. But we've got to take those blinders off, because even as the Bible says, the poor will be with us always, but it didn't say that we didn't have to do anything to help the poor. Do unto your brother as you do unto me. Hi, caller. Welcome into Neighbortalk.
How doing?
Hi, dear.
Great. Mayor Wharton,
Yes,
how you doing, sir?
I'm good.
Ms. Fullilove, how you doing today?
Thank you so very much. Doing well.
Great. I'm calling from the Boxtown community.
Yes, sir.
Yes, when y'all get a chance, can y'all just ride down here and just look at the trash, the debris? You have elderly people that are 70, 80 years old. I mean, people they dump stray dogs, they dump tires, and I mean, these people that live in Whitehaven, Coral Lake, and different subdivisions, they treat Boxtown as it is a desolated place, and it shouldn't be like that.
Well, let me tell you this, caller. I know last year, I think it was in October, I had a resident in Boxtown that called me, and we sent the city out, Dwan Gillum and his crew. They went out there and they cleaned up that area. It was one specific area. I don't know what area you're talking about. It was, in fact...
Yeah, that was me.
That was you? Okay.
So that was me, and I called in.
So now it's happened
They
again?
had cleaned up. They started, and then, they just left it, empty.
And
Okay.
And I'm just saying, Boxtown is a part of the city as well.
Of course it is. Of course it is. The mayor wants to address you.
we have what we call the E-team, the enforcement team. It's highly coordinated, and I personally attend those meetings. That is a disgrace. We're coming down hard on that. I mean, from the top. We're going to make this America's cleanest city again. Call in again. We'll get out there again. But what I want to do is get cameras up, like we're doing for other
Police,
crimes.
yeah.
To me, this is a crime
yeah.
of the first degree, when someone, their house might not be much, and they're not asking for anything.
It's
They're not
theirs.
coming, and for me to come through and trash
Dump
that
things.
is despicable. I wish we could make it a felony.
Yeah,
Like,
because this young man, and please give me a call tomorrow. I think you still have my numbers. Just give me a call, and we'll begin working on that as soon as possible. We have about 5 minutes left here in the show. Before we go back to the phone lines, when I talked to you about businesses becoming involved, and have we reached out, or are we reaching out to the business community?
Yeah, the Partners for the Homeless is really the business-driven group. For a long time, we just created a Memphis Coalition that was made up of the agencies, and I guess about 2000, somewhere maybe earlier than that, the Partners for the Homeless were founded, and primarily driven by the business community. First Tennessee Bank, Plow Foundation, they all were very instrumental in putting it together. So, the project has done a lot in Memphis to spearhead and support homeless initiatives. And we're hoping through this 10-year plan that they will get involved even more.
Hi, caller. Welcome into Neighbortalk.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, my name is Cliff Swearingen, and I would like to say good afternoon to Mrs. Fullilove, Mayor Wharton.
Thank you so much.
Director Lipscomb, Mr. Watkins. I'm a small contractor with the City of Memphis, Shelby County. I have recently founded a nonprofit that's soon to be unveiled that's called ARC Labor Forces. That is probably, once you guys, I wish you would embrace it once you see it, it's probably going to answer a lot of our problems for housing, for secure housing for our elderly, as well as jobs for people that need jobs with minor felonies and stuff like that. This is a problem that has been going on for a long time in the city. I have over 38 years of experience in the city, and I've been trying to get this program going for a long time. I ask that you guys would look into it when it's unveiled and hopefully embrace that.
And thank you so very much, sir, and we certainly look forward to that. We have 3 minutes left here in the program. We're going to the phone lines very quickly. Hi, caller. Welcome to Neighbortalk.
Yes, hello. You know, I am 81 years old, and about the homeless, I'm about to be homeless. I own my own home, but it's so old, my house is over 100 years old, it's about to fall down on me. And I've been calling for years and years of trying to get somebody to help me fix my house up so I can have somewhere to stay.
Okay, ma'am, let me ask you this. I want you to, don't hang up. Someone is going to get your information right now. We're going to put you on hold. We're going to get that information, and you're going to get the help that you need. We have only a minute or so left.
Let's get her information, because we're going to send somebody out there tomorrow.
We're going to get your information. Is she on hold? Okay, we have you on hold, and we're going to help you. All right. Mayor Wharton, final words. We have 2 minutes.
Our words, as we said at the top, we're working to end homelessness, not simply to abate it or put a Band-Aid on it. It's not going to happen overnight, but there is enough goodwill, people of goodwill in the city. We're going to end homelessness, and that's our goal, that's our vision. And with these good troopers here, we're going to do it.
Director Lipscomb.
We're going to bring everybody together and work together, and I know Brad is, we all want to work for the same purpose, and I think we have to put our, our differences aside to work on this and create a consensus plan to move forward, and I think we're willing to do that.
Certainly, Brad.
Well, I just want to say this is a positive time, and there's a lot of, and I'm so glad there's a lot of energy and excitement and passion in the audience. I'm asking all of you to stay passionate, to get involved, to stay involved. You've got a lot of elections coming up. There's going to be a lot of people calling your house and knocking on your doors for your vote. Ask them where they stand on this issue. Ask them where they stand on drug court in Jericho. Ask them to support those things, because those things save lives.
And I want to thank my guests, Mayor Wharton, of course, Director Lipscomb, Brad Watkins. We're all going to be working together, because I know the council is going to work with you guys as well. And look, the next time you see a homeless person, embrace that individual, because, except for the grace of God, there go I. I'm Janis Fullilove, your City Councilwoman, District 8, Position 2. You have any concerns in your neighborhood, any abandoned homes, any issues of potholes, or even homelessness, give me a call, 576-6786. Again, that number is 576-6786, and I will be back with you in a couple of weeks with another edition of Neighbor Talk, talking about issues that certainly affect you and getting the job done. This is a new administration. We're going to clean up this city. You heard what the mayor said. It's going to be city beautiful, and people are going to love each other and work together. You have a good night. Okay.